Lavi Re, the Holistic Health and Femininity Coach, and welcome to Vegan Basics 101. Today we're in the kitchen making quick bread, and quick bread is exactly what it's called. It's a one bowl bread that you can make at home in less than 30 minutes. You just whip it up really quick, and I'm going to share with you my tried and true recipe. I call it my 3, 2, 2, 1 bread. So that is 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 cups of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and then 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So that's 3, 2, 2, 1. Flour, sugar, baking powder, and baking soda. Now, we are going to modify it just a little bit because today we're making banana bread. But that is going to be your basic recipe for a vanilla bread, zucchini bread, cinnamon raisin bread, even a carrot cake loaf. And we are going to bake our bread in a loaf pan today. So let's go ahead and get started in the kitchen. So as I mentioned, we are going to be making banana bread today. So the first step to making vegan banana bread is to mash up your bananas. So I use these little tiny ones because they're super sweet and they're even sweeter when they are overripe. So they are the first things to go into the bowl. So I'm gonna set this here for now. And we're gonna put our bananas in there and we're just gonna mash them up. Now I started baking a few years ago. I actually owned a little cupcake shop outside of Houston, and I used to do weddings and events, birthday parties, and when I became plant-based, I thought to myself, how am I going to give up my sweets? I definitely want to give up the dairy. My son had a dairy allergy, but for special occasions, for baby showers, I was known for bringing my cake. And so I started experimenting with different plant-based recipes, and that's how I came up with my 3, 2, 1, 1 bread. So I have little mashed banana there, which is about a cup of mashed bananas, and then I add my sugar right to it. Now, honeys, sugar is not healthy, so don't think that this is your healthy version. This is definitely your dairy-free version, but this is the pure cane sugar that I like to use when I am baking sweets for celebrations. Now you can definitely substitute the sugar for something like honey or agave. You just want to be mindful that those are liquids and sugar is not a liquid. But when you mix it up with the banana, it begins to break down. So I'm going to go ahead and put my liquids into this bowl. So you're going to mash up your banana and let the sugar begin to break it down. And once you have that all mixed up, then you're going to start adding your liquids to it. So what I'm going to do is slice a lemon. And I'm going to make something like buttermilk with soy milk. And so as you remember, the recipe only calls for 1 cup of milk. And what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze about a tablespoon of lemon juice in a bowl, and then we're going to add 1 cup of soy milk to it. Now the reason I use soy milk is because it has a neutral flavor. Now if I was making like coconut bread or almond bread, then I would use an almond milk or a coconut milk. But I also like to get soy milk because I like to cook with it. And so in another video, you'll see we're gonna make a sauce and I'm gonna use soy milk because it has a neutral flavor. Now in this recipe, I'm not adding as much milk because the bananas are already liquidy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let that milk curdle. I'm gonna let the milk curdle a little bit and I'm gonna begin adding our liquids to it. So for your bread recipe, it's 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. You're also gonna need 1 cup of milk and a 1/4 cup of oil. So we're gonna go ahead and add our 1/4 cup of oil. And I only use oil to replace the butter, but you can also I use oil to replace the butter, but you can also use applesauce as your modification. And I'm just gonna go ahead and pour that right in there. And to that, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. At this point, I just like to go ahead and mix it with the spatula. It's just easier to mix that way. And once it's mixed up, then I add the flour to the mixed batter. So I'm going to add 3 cups of flour. And I'm trying to make sure that it's level. 1. 2. 3. Next, you're going to add your 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Next, I add my baking powder. Then I add my baking soda. And last but not least, I add the salt. And that's about 1 teaspoon of salt. And then I mix it all up. I always turn it from the bottom to make sure I get all the flour. And once that's mixed well, then I add my walnuts. And actually, in this recipe, I only use 1.5 cups of sugar because the bananas are already sweet. So you don't need to use the full 2 cups of sugar. In fact, I never use 2 cups of sugar, but that's how I remember it. It's 3, 2, 1. But I try to avoid using the full 2 cups of sugar as a modification. And I just want it to be a little bit more liquidy. And then once I have that in there, then I'll go ahead and add my cinnamon. And mix everything really well. You don't want to overmix it. So I'm going to go ahead and add my walnuts. And I like to crumble my walnuts just a little bit when I put them in there. And you can add as much or as little as you would like. And I just mix in my walnuts, being careful not to overmix, just gently turning, making sure the cinnamon and the additional milk I put in there is mixed well. And there you go. Now the reason that I added lemon juice to the milk to make it buttermilk was so that the lemon juice could interact with the baking soda and make the flour, make it rise. Now once you have your batter all mixed up, you're gonna go ahead and pour it into a parchment-lined loaf pan. Now I preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and in a loaf pan, it's gonna take about 45 minutes to bake. Now, if you use a 8x8 or a 9x9 baking dish, then it might take you about 25 to 30 minutes to bake. And what I do is after about 15 minutes, I open the oven and I rotate it. I check it only one time. You don't wanna open and close your oven because then the temperature drops and your baked goods will not bake evenly. So I'll go ahead and put my batter in there. I'm going to, let's see, I'm gonna smooth it out just a little bit so it'll be nice and pretty on top. Yeah. And then after I smooth it out, I'm actually gonna go ahead and sprinkle a couple more walnuts on there. Now I love to make variations of my bread. Like I told you, I used to own a bakery. So I put chocolate chips in mine. Sometimes I put half of the batter in and then I'll chop up some bananas and then put a little cinnamon, maybe even some vegan butter, and then put the top layer on there so there's a nice cinnamony, buttery layer right in between. But whatever you do, have fun with it. This is a basic recipe: 3 cups of flour, 1.5 to 2 cups of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and then also 1 cup of liquid. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this into the oven and we'll see what comes out. So the banana bread is cooled and I cut it and I just wanna taste a little piece of it. It's so good. The cinnamon and walnuts, I hate to talk with food in my mouth, but it's delicious. I hope you guys get a chance to make it and try it at home. Bon appetit.